Welcome to Integrity Inspire, your daily dose of inspiration and motivation, featuring the bright and talented members of the Integrity Marketing Group family. Now, here's your host, Integrity co-founder and CEO, Bryan W. Adams.
Well, hey, everybody, thank you so much for joining today's Inspire podcast. So excited to just continue this whole journey with each one of you. This has been just such a fun time. Well, I am so excited to welcome another guest to the Inspire podcast. We have just some amazing people here at Integrity, and this is one of those exciting days. Bill was actually one of the first people we thought about whenever we kind of outlined this conference call about people who could get on and encourage people about working remote and having a positive attitude about that. And Bill is honestly a throwback in a lot of ways, and just really just an inspirational leader in so many ways. So today I'm joined by Bill Douglas, president of Savers Marketing. And Bill is one of the savviest marketers in the insurance business today, and he really understands our business and our products inside and out. And what amazes me about Bill is that he's been with Savers Marketing for over 35 years. Savers used to be actually an insurance company, as we'll talk about, Savers Life Insurance Company, and then they became Savers Marketing, and he spent 35 years as a career with Savers. And a lot of times people jump around, and people don't stick with their careers for that long. But Bill is an example that if you stick with something and you stay committed, then you can be successful and have an incredible career longevity that many people don't get to have. And a big part of what made Bill so successful was his ability to recognize opportunities and then take advantage of them quickly. He doesn't wait for success to find him or come to him. He goes out and gets it. And he's had a huge role in making Savers one of the preeminent insurance distributors really in the country and within the Integrity family. He is known as just someone that has just tremendous leadership, but also just the highest level of integrity, and is also just a great friend. So, Bill, thank you so much for being here today. It's always a pleasure talking to you, and I'm so excited to have a chance for others to get to know you even better as well.
Hey, Bryan, thanks for inviting me. And before I go any further, Blair, I've got to add quickly that I was a huge Springsteen fan in college and used to fight hard to get tickets to attend those concerts. So great job on your intro song there. But hey, Bryan, I feel very honored, and I've got to tell you, I'm humbled, very humbled to be here today and speak to you guys. You know, your podcast and this podcast has really been amazing. You know, I've loved being able to hear from so many of the Integrity partners that I respect so much, and I've got to tell you, each and every day I've learned so much more just from listening in on what everybody else has shared. So it's been a tremendous blessing.
Well, hey, Bill, I completely agree, and I'm sure that people are going to be saying the same thing about you once that we're done on this call today. You were kind of a unique person, Bill. I mean, if you really think about it, there's not many people who start working for a company the way that you did and stay there for over 3 decades, and then end up being the president of the company and owner of the company. How did you end up at Savers? Tell us a little bit about Savers, first of all, and kind of how you got started, and then how you ended up there in the first place.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting and funny at the same time. Well, to fully tell the story, we're going to have to go back a few years further when I was actually just getting out of college. You know, I graduated from East Carolina University back in 1982. You know, I have to say I'm a very proud pirate from Eastern North Carolina.
Ruff and McNeil. Ruff and McNeil, man. Rupp and McNeil.
You're right.
There's a lot of good ECU Pirates out there. There's some great people.
Well, I've got to say, you sent a great coaching crew from Texas Tech up to our school, and man, we had a great run when those guys were in place. So hey, thanks for letting us borrow those guys for a short period of time.
Well, yeah, Lincoln Riley was y'all's offensive coordinator. Now he's a head coach of Oklahoma Sooners, and he's a Texas Tech boy. Grew up right outside Lubbock and went to Tech, and he was told he wasn't good enough to be a quarterback by Mike Leach, and he didn't let that. He was backing up a guy named Cliff Kingsbury, and he was told you're not good enough. And instead, he said, "Well, let me coach. I want to be on the team," and then became, one of the better coaches in college football today. But he went to ECU after that. So I've been rooting for ECU alongside of you for a while. I was just following those guys.
Right, man. I appreciate that a bunch, and what a run and contribution that Lincoln made to our program, and that was a great, exciting time. And I'll add that I knew when I was in school and going and pursuing my degree that I wanted to go into sales. I just didn't know what industry that was going to be, or what kind of sales. I just knew I wanted to be in control of that destiny by being in that position. And actually, when I got out, back in 1982, sounds like a long time ago, but it just seems like yesterday. Our country was in somewhat of I guess I would call it a mini recession. I've got to say, I learned a lot during that time period. I thought that even having a college degree, I thought you were going to jump right out into the world and people were going to be begging to hire you, and finding jobs and careers were going to be easy. But I got to tell you, I spent 13 months after graduating searching for a job, and I got to admit, and I don't mind sharing this with everybody, it got really discouraging at times because I saw a number of my friends who also graduated, Bryan, at the same time, who had degrees, and man, they were finding career paths and launching into opportunities, and yet I was still sitting there searching, quite honestly, begging for an opportunity to go to work somewhere.
Man, I tell you what, I'm afraid that's how a lot of the people coming out of college this year and next year could be as well. And I think sometimes it takes time. It takes a while for you to get started on the right path. And I know some detours are out there. But you obviously found your true calling and what you love to do, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. I didn't want just any old job, and what I mean by that, and I was also not picky about it. Man, I just wanted to find a path that would lead to a rewarding career. So I just kept looking. Despite being discouraged, I said, man, the fear of failure, I've got to keep pushing hard, and I've got to find that opportunity. And like I said earlier, I knew sales were going to be where I wanted to go. I just didn't know which industry. And I remember specifically, I had never at that time thought about the insurance career and the insurance field, but opportunities in the insurance industry kept popping up. And I remember finally telling my mother, I said, I never thought I'd be in the insurance business, but I've got to go apply for some of these that I'm seeing that are being advertised. And I've got to take some interviews. And I've got to tell you, some of the folks on this call may remember this. Back in the 80s, man, we had different distribution models in our industry. We had career shops that would have been like your Prudentials, your Metropolitans, your Jefferson Pilots. What they would do, Bryan, is they would bring in totally greenhorn rookies, send them to training schools, and then put them out there with a rate book and say, go sell insurance. The only problem in that interview process, you had to take sales aptitude tests, and they were going to determine whether you were worthy of those spots and landing one of those opportunities. And I've got to tell you, every time I took a sales aptitude test, I flunked it. I flunked every sales aptitude test that were given. You're talking about being disparaged.
So you took these sales aptitude tests, and they told you wouldn't be good at it, right? And talk about discouraging. Is that My gosh, that had to be frustrating.
Yeah, it was tough. Despite all the tests, and I mean every one of those tests basically, Bryan, just indicated that I didn't have the right personality for it. I was being told, hey, you're not going to be able to succeed in sales. Maybe you need to think about doing something else. But I tried to block that out of my mind. I said, hey, I'm going to keep on looking. And finally, when opportunity knocked on the door, I tried and definitely took advantage of it. In fact, I'll mention this kind of a funny story. I saw an ad in a newspaper in North Carolina, which at the time was from our largest savings bank in North Carolina. And they were going to hire, Bryan, 4 different folks to come in and sell annuities to their customer base and help develop the annuity business. Well, if you think back in the early 80s, who ever heard of selling annuity products in banking institutions? Well, fortunately for me, their deal was they were going to hire 4. 3 of those sales reps, they wanted to have past sales experience in the financial services industry. And then the 4th person, they wanted to sell or hire that didn't have any experience in financial sales. And so I ended up being that 4th person without the experience. And thank the dear Lord above, they didn't make me take a sales aptitude test, because had they done that like the previous career shops, I probably would have flunked out and not ended up where I was today. But as it turned out, long story short, I found out that I wasn't really nearly as bad at sales as all the tests had indicated that I took before. So I ended up doing, I don't want to blow my own horn, but I did pretty well selling annuities in the banks. And man, I found out that my career path was in that direction, and hey, everything started going well from there.
It's interesting that you talk about that. I've never been a big believer in those aptitude tests because first of all, I'm not a very good test taker, period. And I just don't think that those really capture the true essence of a person. And really, I don't know. I just don't know that they really are always accurate. There can be some accuracies. I'm not saying they're not, but I remember, and I've never really told people this story, but when I was 16, I called my mom about this last night because you and I were talking yesterday, and so I called my mom last night about this just to find out. When I was 16, my parents, I guess when my sister was 16, they did the same thing. I'm not sure why. My mom and dad grew up really poor, really, really poor, started their own business. My dad's a funeral director, owned several funeral homes. And they were just committed that we were going to have a good education because they didn't, and they wanted to make sure that we had a chance to be successful. And so when I was 16, we went and took an aptitude test. It was a 2-day long aptitude test. I grew up in West Texas out by Lubbock, so it was 5 hours away to Dallas. Came into Dallas, stayed for 2 days, and went through this. And honestly, I remember being in this cold room and some dude asking me what does this picture say to you, and that picture, and it was awkward as can be, man. And I don't know. I was it looks like scribble. I don't know. And so I had kind of this career path or this idea of what I wanted to go on. And anyways, so what this guy, and so part of it was to help you prepare on what type of college you should go to and what kind of career field you should go to. And this company, I think it's still in business today. This company, as we got through with it, and my mom was telling me about this last night as well, is so when we get the readout, so you go through the second day, and at the end of the day, you go through a readout, and they tell you, well, you'd be good at what you wouldn't be good at. And essentially they said that I probably wouldn't do very good at a 4-year university, a large college. I probably should go into a junior college or just go into working somewhere. And that essentially what I wanted to do that they said that I would never be successful at. My mom said that she was really proud of me. She said the guy was just super discouraging the whole time, just telling me essentially that I wasn't going to be successful in working in a larger organization or a larger college. I needed to be in a smaller environment, and that the opportunity that I would have would just be never really being, more on the entrepreneurial side or even in the business world. And I remember my mom said that she remembers whenever he told me that at 16 years old, I said, well, I don't believe you and I can do whatever I want to do. And I left. And she said, I left and she was like, it something clicked. Like you were just like, I'm going to prove to him. So I went to Texas Tech. And I remember going to Tech and that little bird sitting on my shoulder saying, you're not going to be able to do well at a big school, and being like, to heck with you, man. I'm going to show you I can do this. And I did okay at school. I ended up even becoming vice president of student body at Texas Tech, and kind of going through that. And I remember even going through that election going, I'm going to show those guys. And it sounds like some of you and what you went through, and that's where, like, listen, if you're on this and people have told you can't do things, bull. I call BS on that. Like, don't listen to those voices. Like, go prove them wrong. And Bill is an example. People said he couldn't be a salesman. Those tests said you couldn't be a salesman. And Bill, you were honestly one of the best salesmen I've ever met in my life. You were a salesman. And if you would have ever told me somebody said you couldn't be a salesman, if somebody ever said that at a cocktail party, I go, you guys, what are y'all drinking? Like, because this guy is one of the best salesmen I've ever met. And so, man, I tell you what, I love the fact that you didn't listen to that and you just went for it, man.
Hey, Bryan, I appreciate that. And, it kind of sounds like you and I are both living proof of that. Our journeys along that path and that time period were kind of similar. But one thing I learned from that is a lot of times, and most of the times, your attitude means a whole lot more than your aptitude.
Amen. Say that again. I think that's so important that people need to understand that. So say that again if you don't mind.
Yeah, your attitude means a whole lot more than your aptitude. I think you can combine attitude and persistence and overcome so much more, even if you're being told your aptitude's not where it needs to be. In fact, we've all seen people with fancy educations, really professional degrees. All that stuff is great, but guys, you got to take this thing and use it. If the attitude's not right and you don't charge ahead and persist, hey, you're not going to be successful. So I think attitude is everything. It was for me. I
agree. Listen, Clay Leggett, co-founder of American Senior Benefits, just sent me a text and he said, I love this guy. As soon as they develop a test that reads the heart, then we'll start using them at American Senior Benefits. Like that's the truth. Whenever we heard from Jim Sweeney at American Senior Benefits talking about getting 600 no's before he got a yes, and the fact that people were thinking he's crazy for sticking with it. You heard from Clay Leggett going, I'll run around the back door. That one was one of my favorites because I couldn't stop laughing. And you've heard that, like, I mean, the people on this call, like the Lenny Andersons, the Alan Towns, all these different people that didn't have fancy educations. I don't have a fancy education. You don't have a real fancy education. And some of the most successful people I know didn't come, from, a silver spoon in their mouth. Or a great like pedigree or things. It was that attitude overcoming that aptitude, which is just so powerful, man. So you went from there, and then you got this job in the bank. So let's talk about that for a minute, about how you got into the banking business, and then kind of where you moved on to Savers today.
Well, actually, like I said, when I landed that opportunity at the bank, I remember that interview, and they said, hey, we want you to sell annuities. And obviously I had no background in the annuity business. And I thought the guy said, I want you to sell immunities. And I said, what in the world is an immunity? Well, I quickly understood. and so fitting for today's environment, I guess,
Yeah.
with COVID-19. But, I jumped on board. Those guys said, hey, we want you to come along, and we want you to basically call on our customer base, and we want you to develop that business. We want you to teach branch managers how to sell annuities and all their savings counselors. Yet remember, I never could pass the sales aptitude test. But what I quickly found out, which was really kind of neat, and I was just fortunate to be at the right place at the right time, I love the annuity business. I love working with people and helping them with tax advantage products that could reduce the amount of money and their tax burden that they had to pay every April 15th. But quite honestly, after about a year and a half, I got kind of bored. I don't know a good word for it, but I got a little bit bored. I wasn't challenged anymore, and I wanted to be more than just a one product peddler. So I said, I got to go get in the investment brokerage business because I want to expand that ability to help people with taxes, and I want to specialize in the municipal bond, tax-free municipal bond industry. And so I went to work for a stock brokerage investment firm with the whole mission of being in the municipal bond business so that I could offer additional tax advantage products to clients and grow and develop that business.
Man, that is a big change. And so so from there, how did you get with Savers? Let's speed through this to get to where you got with Savers. Yeah. And how you guys kind of went from there. So you went into the banking business, you got into investments, now you're with Savers.
Yeah. Basically, I jumped into the investment world and was loving what I was doing there. But if we can go back quickly for a second, think back when I was at the bank, the annuity products that the bank marketed were with and created, manufactured by Savers Life Insurance Company. Well, that's how I got to know the Savers Life Insurance family and all the wonderful folks working there. But when I went into the investment business and I was no longer in the bank, then Savers Life said, hey, we need to come offer this young man an opportunity. We need to help him come on board, join our team, and help develop and recruit and develop banking business in the annuities all over the eastern half of North and South Carolina. So Savers came along. They said, hey, you're no longer at one of our best accounts. We feel comfortable offering you an opportunity. Will you come to work for us? I said, certainly. Let's get started. I'm coming back. I'm going to join this team. They were so special to me that I say, hey, let's get started. And I started developing the annuity business in banking institutions in the Carolinas back in those early years.
Man, that's very, very exciting. So you went from working for Savers to now you're president of Savers. That is a big jump, and you've been doing that for over 35 years. You've been with that one company, and you guys have gone through your ups and downs. You had a life insurance company, and then y'all sold it. And I'll tell part of the story here. Y'all sold it, and then whenever you sold it, you created this marketing agency, and that you and some of your partners acquired and then now run. Now, whenever you did that, you started working from home, and as I understand it, you've been working remote for a long time. So this whole working remote has been business as usual for you. Tell us a little bit about how you started working remote and what kind of your setup was there.
Oh, Bryan, this is really fun, but it's definitely a period that I'm actually very proud of. When I came to work for Savers Life Insurance Company, keep in mind the home office headquarters was located in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. However, I was 4 hours east. I'm on the coast, Wilmington, North Carolina. And at the time, we had no office down in Wilmington, and the headquarters was 4 hours away. Well, I had to have a place to work. And it's just like your story. I started out in my house, but I didn't have enough room in the dining room. So I actually set up. Yeah, I had I had louver doors. I'd pull them shut, and I'm saying, y'all got to be quiet. I'm on a telephone call, and like you said, the doorbell rings, and I'm going, geez, I've got to improve my situation. So I actually took a storage shed, and I set it up in my back office. I remember digging lines and putting power to the shed, internet connections, phone lines, and the old fax machines. Started working in the shed. And from 1988 to 2015, I was in a little shed in my backyard. So working remote is nothing new to me. In fact, it was great because I had no distractions. Nobody there was distracting me other than two Labrador retrievers.
No one would ever go in the shed. So hold on. You actually worked are you talking like one of those sheds that you put up where most people store like their rakes and shovels and their lawnmower? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, let me say quickly, and the reason I even thought about the shed and bringing this up, I got to tell you, if I can add this really quickly, I was so inspired when I recently heard Allentown explain how bad he wanted to create his business. He moved back in with his parents. They opened up their office in the basement, had a sheet hanging over the door, and had dirt floors. And I went, Alan's always been he's a hero to me and a mentor. And hearing how he started his business kind of related to me of having a storage shed. Well, to answer your question, if everybody on the call can think about it, if you drive by Home Depot or Lowe's Home Improvements, you see those little sheds out front that people buy and they throw in the back of the trailer and they drive them home and set them up. That's what it was, Bryan. It was a storage shed that would have been nothing more than a place to put your rakes and your shovels and your wheelbarrows. But that was my office, and I was very proud of it. In fact,
my
I will also add, let me tell you this also. In fact, when I sold the house, I kept a picture of that shed just to remind me and others that you can be successful no matter where you come from. And I'm proud of that. And if you'd like, I'd be glad to send that picture to you so you can take a look at it.
Man, listen, you have to send me that picture. Would you? And if you don't mind, I'm going to send it out to everybody here in Integrity because I love what you just said. So just kind of in conclusion, I want to just bring up 2 points that you've talked about. You've talked about attitude overcomes aptitude every time. And I completely believe that. So if somebody tells you you're not good at something, you can't do something, that is one of those things that, man, I think we all need to stand up and say, well, then watch me do this, right? It's like, yeah. I mean, then maybe I'll fail, right? Maybe I won't do it right, but by God, I'm going to try. And that's part of my story is that people have told me for a lot of years, hey, you're not going to be good at this, you're not going to be good at that, and I'm like, well, hold my beer and watch this, because I'm going to give it a shot, right? I think that is such an important point that you're talking about here is attitude always overcomes aptitude. And you've always had a smile on your face every time I've seen you. You've always had just the best attitude. And I believe hard work and enthusiasm will overcome education and pedigree every day, every single freaking day. I would believe that. And like Clay Legette said, you let me test somebody's heart. You let us see their heart, and man, I'll tell you, they're going to be successful. And that's where I think you can see it. And then secondly, talking about like doing what other people won't do, being willing to do stuff that no one else, people would think is beneath them. Like most people, Bill, would never think about. They wouldn't even cross their mind, like, let's just get a shed. I saw this at Home Depot, and, I mean, how big was that shed? Like 8 by 10, 8 by 12, something like that?
Yeah, it was 8 by 12 and had plenty of room. I remember the day my son
plenty of room.
We grabbed a stack of 2x4s and some plywood and built us a desk. Man, I thought, hey, listen, I thought I had
You built your own desk? Oh, my God, this gets better.
Yeah.
So listen, so most people wouldn't be at Home Depot and go, you know what, I can make an office out of that. I can make a career out of that, and I could stay in there for decades, like literally a couple of decades. And so, like more than a couple of decades, like that is amazing that you're like, I'm not beneath that. I'm fine. I'll do that. And that shows like doing what other people won't will always help you get where other people can't get, as well. And so, man, Bill, listen, I love this story. I love what you represent, what Savers represents, what you and, listen, Brad Campbell, Scott Francis, Matt Francis, Jerry Francis, you guys have some amazing people there, as well as all the other incredible people that work with you guys. Man, I know that you guys have done what it takes to be successful. You put in the hard work, and I'm proud to be your partner, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I just can't tell you on behalf of everybody in Integrity how proud we are to be your partner.
Hey, well, Bryan, listen, that means a lot. We have been so blessed and fortunate to be a part of this family. And I've got to say, just as you just mentioned, I would be nothing if it wasn't for the partners that I call my friends and partners at Savers and the leadership and what they bring each and every day. I'm fortunate that they allow me to be part of their team, and I am truly thankful for that.
Well, and the other part is humility. I mean, the one thing I've also heard from every one of our partners, one of the common threads is humility. And the fact that you just wanted to give your partners credit is so powerful. Bill, it's been a blessing, man. We could go into multiple podcasts on this to talk more about your working out of a storage building and the aptitude that honestly you have, and I just want to speak this truth into your life. Like, you know that you are a salesman. Those aptitude tests were wrong. You're one of the best I've ever seen, and the reason is because of your heart, first and foremost. And so, man, I just want to thank you again for joining us, for blessing us today, and for all that you guys do at Savers.
Hey, listen, Bryan, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity and all our Integrity family. It's what a wonderful journey, but we have, as Bryan has said, we have just begun.
Amen to that. Well, hey, everybody, thanks again for joining us today on today's Inspire podcast. Hope everybody has a very blessed day. Can't wait to talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.